So further questions. So
Yeah, thanks, Chair.
You're not free yet, Mr. Kinley. Or?
Okay, thanks very much. Now, Mr. Kinley, I just want to go to Maritime Order 32.
Yes, Senator.
Okay, so you would agree with, do you agree with Safe Work Australia figures that show Australian waterside workers are 14 times more likely to be killed than the average worker?
I don't have those figures with me, but if that's what Safe Work is saying, Senator, I would agree.
Okay, thanks. And obviously you're aware of the letter sent by the Maritime Union of Australia over Maritime Order 32 to yourselves?
Yes, Senator.
Okay.
And could I just give you some background, Senator, on this? Now, Marine Orders Part 32 was first issued in 1986. It came on, it was a development of the old NAV regulations orders, and it came from a time before we had work health and safety authorities and the performance-based work health and safety legislation in the country. So since around 2008, I think, we had been discussing with the MUA and industry our desire that a lot of the things which were in MO32, which were carries over from the time before there was a work health and safety laws in the country, to move those into a more appropriate place. And our view, we made this clear with everyone, was that, you know, the people with the real teeth and the real regulatory authority over safe work in Australia are the work health and safety authorities. We're the Work Health and Safety Authority under the Occupational Health and Safety Maritime Industry Act, but we don't do waterside. So we worked very closely with the MUA and with industry, and we supported very much the MUA in the view that the stevedoring industry needed a code of practice. And our view is very much that a code of practice under the work health and safety law is where these things belong, because that is where the real teeth are. That is their work health and safety laws are the things that send people to jail if you kill somebody. And so we did consult very widely. We worked very closely with Safe Work Australia and on the tag, and we supported the development of this as a code, not as guidelines. We're very up for that. And
mandatory, sorry, you're saying mandatory?
As a code of practice which is adopted under the work health and safety laws.
Sorry, Mr. Keogh, I don't wish to interrupt you, but
yep.
I'm feral against mandatory and voluntary, because voluntary is just a load of bull dust. You know, the good guys conform, the rat bags don't, and then all of a sudden they start.
Yep.
Losing work and all sorts of stuff. That's why I asked.
Yeah, but
define it.
But again, the work health and safety laws in this country, the way that you work with a code is that if you've got a code of practice under those laws, then non-compliance with that code is prima facie evidence in court that you've breached the law. So they're a very strong tool to use. As opposed to our marine order, which is a delegated bit of legislation under the Act, I think with a maximum penalty of, I don't know, I think it's up to $2,000 or something now. And so we did consult very widely. We've been telegraphing this for some years, that our intention was that when that code of practice was made, that we would amend the Marine Orders Part 32, as we indeed have. We consulted in November 2014 through into January. We did get feedback from the MUA, and again, the MUA were very clear that they didn't think this should be guidance material, and we agree this is going into a code. And we did publish an 80-page summary of the Marine Order and the changes and why we were going to make the changes we were, what feedback we had as well at that time. So I've got to say I was a bit surprised when I got the letter on Friday or Thursday last week raising their concerns. I thought we'd dealt with them, asking for a meeting, and we'll be happy to go and meet with them.
Okay. All right, well, thanks for that. Look, I do want to just touch on when you said AMSA consulted very widely. because there's a belief that consultation wasn't. So tell me how you consulted widely. Very wildly, sorry.
Yep.
Wide, not wild.
And certainly, as I said, this has been going on since, I mean, with the first reference I've got here is in 2010 to the Safe Work Australia Temporary Advisory Group meeting, where we were there with the industry and with the unions. We supported the development of the code, and we made it very clear at that time about our intention with Marine Orders Part 32.
That's not in dispute, Mr. Kinsey.
No, the external consultation on Marine Orders Part 32 was certainly sent to all stakeholders. We extended the time that stakeholders asked us to consult. I've got a list of the 78 bodies that we sent the consultation to, and indeed we got feedback from the MUA in January 2015, providing their feedback. And in response, we certainly published, I think, as I said, an 80-page, we certainly published that 80-page summary of the changes we were intending.
Mr. Kinsey, I suppose to help the committee out, I understand you sent out the 78 and there was an extension of time, but when you talk about widely consulting, was there opportunity for MUA and others to come back and say, we have a problem with this, can we meet again? Yes, we'll meet again, then we'll argy-bargy, series of meetings, or was it just you sent it out once, you got some feedback, and then that was it? This is where I'm struggling to understand the wide consultation.
The Marine Order, I guess, was a culmination of a process, because we looked at the development of the code through the tag as a process that we were making the mirror amendments to MO32. So when the code was at a point where it was just about done, that was where our Marine Orders Part 32 reflected that, and the things that we were looking to have moved from one to the other. And then at the culmination of that process, we sent out that Marine Order for that consultation, and we had the feedback. So, and the feedback again from the MUA was very much that they didn't want this in guidance material, and that's why we supported the code.
Okay, but Mr. Kinsey, I don't want to go on too much about it. Yep. My previous life was all about consultation, and this life has a large degree of consultation sometimes. But there's a difference between, yes, we're going to get into some serious discussions, your concerns are raised, how do we address them, this is our position, this is yours, how do we get to the middle or somewhere around there? Was that the case, or was it just, this is what we're going to do, thanks for your feedback, move on?
Yep.
That's what it was.
Can you add to this, Al?
What I was going to add to that, Senator, was that this was actually the consultation that went on with this work was actually a bit of a package deal, in that it wasn't just about Marine Orders Part 32, it was also about the code of practice that was done under Safe Work, and there was an entirely separate set of consultation that was done about the code of practice. So there was about 4 rounds of consultation according to the regulation impact statement from Safe Work.
Which is the whole package.
Which was about the code of practice.
Yeah.
But involved in that were all of the relevant stakeholders and AMSA. And I know that AMSA were very, very upfront, going back probably 6 or 7 years with what we intended to do. We provided early on a copy of what our intentions and our thoughts were with MO32. So, as well as the consultation that we conducted in December 14, January 15, there was actually a lot of other consultation that put all of that package together, and there was a lot of discussion that went on around the whole deal.
Okay, I feel like I'm in a bit of circle work, but thanks for that. Will the application of the new Marine Order 32 lead to a reduction in safety standards?
Certainly not in our view, Senator, and certainly in the view of the decision regulatory impact statement that went with the code of practice, was that was going to improve safety. And as I said, this puts a lot of the things that were sitting in a Marine Order, delegated legislation, $2,000 fine, into a code of practice under the work health safety laws.
Okay, so Mr Kinsley, help me out here. How would this improve safety if the requirement as part of MO32 for a ship's crane driver to have a guide when their load can't be sighted? Tell me how that will improve safety.
Again, Senator, those requirements are now in the Safe Work Australia managing stevedoring, managing risks in stevedoring, about having a clear view, the driver having a clear view of the load, or having someone there to a hatchman or as necessary to manage those risks.
So it's now in a, did you say guide?
It's in a code of practice.
So it's enforceable by law that they still have to have a hatchman?
It is, again, the code of practice under the work health safety law. If
Thanks, mate.
the work health and safety authorities wish to take action, then non-compliance with this is admissible in court as evidence of compliance.
Right, so if a crane driver hasn't got a hatchman, they're now protected by legislation that says I'm not moving until we get a hatchman here.
Again, the work health safety, and not from an industrial point of view, but the work health safety laws, as you probably know better than me, have the consultative arrangements about work health safety and those requirements that are there.
Yes, I understand. I understand the WA Occupational Health and Safety Act of 1984. I used to know it back to front. The problem I used to have is there was no bugger that was prepared to get off their fat backside in West Perth to come out and police it. But anyway, that's WA, and I'm sure it's improved immensely since then. All right, so would you agree that no safe crane operation in the country has standards that allow a crane driver to drive blind in the vicinity of unsighted workers in the ship's hold? I know what you've just said, but I'm really asking you that.
And certainly the guidelines, the code of practice, I think is quite clear on how you manage those risks.
Okay, so just so I'm certainly clear here, the hatchman has not been removed.
The requirement to have a sight of the load, and I'd have to flick through here and actually find the wording they use, Senator. But
No, you can tell me.
that risk is still is being dealt with, in our view, adequately in the code of practice.
Okay, so you still have to have a hatchman. Have to by law.
And as prima facie compliance with work health and safety arrangements, and again, I have to have a look at the wording in here before I can say. I mean, this is not my law now. This is a code of practice under the work health and safety law. I
understand it, Mr. Kingsley, and I'm not trying to set a spider's trap for
Yes.
you. But previously under MO32, if I'm reading this correct, that the crane driver, if it was required to move freight outside the line of sight, had to have a hatchman under MO32. That's correct?
Or a lookout.
Or a lookout, whatever.
Just very quickly, Senator, and I don't know, there's likely to be more, but some of the things I've just quickly noted in the code of practice. It talks about a reliable way for a crane operator and any person directing that load to communicate. It talks about only one person should give signals at any one time. It talks about effective communication is particularly important when the crane operator cannot see the load, see the load's landing area, see the path of travel of the load or the crane, make an accurate judgment of distance, and see if the crane or the load may contact overhead electric lines. So there is a lot of this information in there, and in fact there's information in there as well that Marine Orders 32 never had, such as licensing of high-risk activities, and it's far stronger on the consultation required with the workforce and far stronger on hazard identification. But.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now I believe that previously there was a safety clearance of 550 mil for working between containers. Is that correct?
Yes, that was a number that was given in the Marine Order in different areas, I think.
Okay, what is it now, to your knowledge?
There is an ILO, an International Labour Organisation code of practice, which I think talks in some cases up to a metre. And there are a variety of distances which is between containers, on access areas as well. So it would just depend on exactly which distance, and I'd probably have to take that on notice.
I'll probably come back a couple of steps here to assist not only yourself but me importantly here. So I'm led to believe previously there was a safety clearance of 550mm between working containers should someone have to be taken out of there if they've been hit or fainted or whatever. Is that correct?
It sounds very familiar to me,
Okay,
Senator, yes.
that's great. So now I'm led to believe that that's not the case. So if it's not the case, what is it now? I did ask you that earlier, and you did say you think there's a meter.
And I'd have to, I don't have Marine Orders Part 32 actually here with me. I've only got the Code of Practice.
All right, well, let's
Senator,
look, whatever we can't, we'll take on
Yeah,
notice,
but,
that's
but,
fine.
but there
Okay.
is an IMO requirement which has come in for that container spacing as well. So we've been trying to align ourselves with that
Mr.
international.
Kinsey, I think you're a decent human being doing the best you can under the circumstances with stuff or resources and money. But as part of my flags of convenience inquiry, and I won't talk about that inquiry, I'm well aware of ILO provisions and laws that are just snubbed. So,
But what I'm saying though is that we harmonise ourselves with what because the IMO have been doing stuff on container spacing, because you can't have a ship rebuilt every time it comes to Australia for that.
I have no problem, and I won't go on all day about my thoughts of policing ILO conventions, because it doesn't happen. This country especially does not do it all the time. All right.
Yes, we do.
We'll get into seafarers later today. Mr. Kingsley, I invite you to stay at the back room, get yourself a cup of coffee. Because anyone who thinks that flags are convenient vessels, all the ILO conventions are Mickey Mouse, it's on another planet.
Oh, I'm not saying.
Oh, that's all right. I
perfect,
thought you were going to have
But I'm saying that
good
we
blue with me on
do
this one.
police the Maritime Labour Convention.
Stick around for later. Okay.
I was going to ask on that.
So has AMSA made... No, that's quite all right. I'll move on. Mr. Kinsey, thank you very much. I just want to put some questions, Minister, to you, if I may. And I don't know if you've been following the conversation on Maritime Order 32.
I've been following it in part,
Okay, all right.
as much detail as I could understand, certainly not
No
being
worries.
familiar with the issue, Senator.
That's quite all right. So, Minister, are you aware of the recent repeal and reissue of Maritime Orders Part 32? These being the principal legislative measures to protect the safety of Australian workers on foreign flag vessels?
Minister, I'm not. Sorry, Senator, I'm not. And what I might suggest, if you have a line of questioning around this, I'm happy to take it on notice
Yep, sure.
for you for the Minister.
Absolutely, no dramas, and I'll put them to you. In fact, I have no problem if you just want to take them all on notice and come back.
That sounds fine.
I'd
Senator,
ask
thank
what
you.
role did the Minister's office play in designing or approving the revised Maritime Order 32?
Mm-hmm.
I'd also ask if the Minister thinks it's acceptable for new Maritime Order 32 to be introduced when it could lead to fatalities, is the belief of some people in the industry, where workers are 14 times higher than the average to be killed on the job. In the intent of the government to, or is it the intent, sorry, Minister, to lower the workplace standards to those of third world countries? And I know you're going to take that on notice.
Indeed.
I think there's a very easy answer to that. No.
No.
Okay, that's fine. Why?
Well, it's not the intention of the Australian government to reduce safety standards. I think
That's fantastic.
As Mr. Kinley's indicated, the purpose of the code and 32 is to get a better workplace safety regime.
Okay.
And Senator, just reading from the regulation impact statement for the code, it was option 2 was about publishing this stuff in a code of practice, and it was estimated that option 2 may result in up to 68 fewer serious incidents per year in the stevedoring industry over the next 10 years.
Okay, thank you. I'd also ask the Minister, Senator, the Minister, sorry, that the international, or are you aware that the International Maritime Organisation, where Australia, I'm told, holds a permanent seat, has drafted a code of safe practice for cargo stowage and securing, which is called the CSS code. And I'd ask if the Minister was aware the CSS code has been adopted by other countries, including Liberia, Singapore, Germany and the United Kingdom, giving force to the general provisions of the previous Maritime Order 32 as mandatory legislation. And where Australia was effectively a world leader in raising the standard of safe access on container ships, the new draft of marine orders is believed has negated the IMO standard for both Australian stevedores and the crews of vessels trading to this country. I'd ask Minister, was it the intent of the Minister to quietly strip away the protection of world's best practice from Australian workers?
Well, I think again, the answer is no, and Mr Kinley can give you more information in relation to the provisions that are being drafted.
And the CSS code is mandated, I think, under Marine Orders 42, and so there are other Marine Orders about cargo safety and security, etc.
And in fact, Senator, the Code of Practice does actually make a point of saying that that needs to be read in conjunction with Marine Orders 32, Marine Orders 42 about cargo securing, Marine Orders 44 about containers. So it is a consolidated package.
And you did say that to me earlier, but there are some concerns I do want to raise, and I'll wait for the answers that come back. For the questions taken on notice. Thank you, Chair. I have no further questions of AMSA.
Thank you, Senator Steele.